Very recently, we reviewed the inverted version of the P1000 pedals, or the P1000i as their official model is called, and they are wonderful pedals. It was a pleasure testing them. However, we were not able to use any of the upgrades at that time, and I was as excited about the upgrades as the pedals themselves when I first heard about the P1000 pedals, because they are really revolutionary. You have a few add-ons to these pedals that make them one-of-a-kind pedals, unlike really anything else on the market. So now we do get to test all of the goodies and upgrades, well, most of the goodies and upgrades for these pedals, and SiMagic was kind enough to also send me the floor-based, or the flat or bottom-mounted version of the pedals, which is great because they're less expensive and easier to get on most rigs. You don't have as many clearance issues. So not only do we get to try out these with the flat mount, which will be really nice, but we get to use all the upgrades as well. So these pedals here, you're looking at $519 for the P1000 Standard Edition. That includes the heel plate and the base and everything. And that is quite a bit. That's $130 less expensive than the inverted version. Now, what I'm so excited about, though, is what we have here are the HPRs, the Haptic Pedal Reactors. These are 3 motors. And this is not new technology or new concept or idea. We are kind of on the revolution with pedals with like the active pedal from SiMagic, for example, but at about $1,500 a piece. Not everybody's going to give that a try. These are $69, and it's a lot closer to the original Club Sport concept, where they had the Club Sports had little vibration motors on the back, and it was like the vibration motors inside of a PS4 controller, for example, and it just wasn't worth going through the hassle to get them up and running. But now with the HPR, Haptic Pedal Reactors by SiMagic, these suckers are a whole different level. So are they active like the SiMagic? No. They are motors, and they're more like the vibration motors on the Club Sport, but a lot more effective, and there's software that runs these and makes them work from the game physics. So we have to install these. These are $69 each, plus you do need a power supply. A lot of people forget the power supply when ordering, apparently. So I'm here to remind you, you do need a power supply per pedal unit. So you need one for the pedals, and then it can power all 3 of these if you need. So all total, you're looking at $207 for this upgrade, but it adds those haptics to all 3 pedals. In addition to that, we now finally have the hydraulic upgrade, the HYS upgrade. They make an inverted and a regular version. We have the regular version here. It's $179, and it adds the feeling, the sensation of hydraulics to the brake pedal. So when we're all done with this, we're going to have a hydraulic feeling brake, which we've talked about in the past. I love that sensation. Very realistic, really good action for sim racing. And on top of that, we're going to have the reactionary pedals, which is going to be awesome. But you can see we have a whole lot of work just to get these up and running and on our rig. So we're going to take these over to the workbench and get these going. Well, with all these upgrades, we do have quite a bit of work to do before we can actually use the pedals. I mean, I could just put the base plate together and throw them on my rig and run them exactly like we ran those inverted pedals, but I'm really excited about this. So obviously we're going to take the time, since we've already tested these pedals out. We don't have to test them in their natural or stock configuration. We've already done that. We can move right into dealing with or putting on all these awesome upgrades. So I'm going to go ahead and make a little bit of space here. Insert the side without the arrows into the feet support plate. So it looks like we want to only put it into that distance there, which makes much more sense. All right, and now we're going to come down here and do the same thing over here. Just give these all a little snug, because they will be underneath. We're not going to, once they're mounted, we're not going to have access to that without taking the pedals off. So go ahead and make sure they're all snug down well. Okay, and now this slides in to this. Well, that was quite the little mishap that we just had. The camera died, or the battery ran out, I should say, right in the middle of filming this. All you really missed, luckily it happened at a great moment. All we are doing is those telescoping rods or connector bars that went in the side and bolting the heel plate on. Pretty straightforward and simple. This is the PHYS. It is a $179 add-on to to the pedals. So it is an upgrade that you can make after you've already purchased the pedals. You can buy it later, you don't have to buy it. And there's a good shot of the hydraulic unit on its own. First things first, loosen the jam nut on the back of the brake, then spin the silver rod clockwise until completely loosened. So we're just spinning the whole thing, and that is removing it from that silver thing, which is pressing on the load cell. Okay, there we go. We got it out of there. And now they want us to remove the locking pin from the clevis. So we'll do that, and then remove this bar. So washer on the clevis side. And then that lets this and this come out. Remove the 2 top screws. Then loosen the locking screw to remove the load cell. Cover. Oh, the screw went in. Alright, there we go. Now that's the cover off. Use the included wrench to remove the ball head from the sensor and replace the ball head connector with the PHYS connector. That's this guy. Align the pin holes. Okay. So we have a set screw in the back here that holds this pin in place. You just want to loosen that up, and that pin should slide out. Ooh, that's pretty slick the way that goes together, I must say. So with that jam nut locked, they want us to now remove this pin, which means it'll maintain its alignment, I'm assuming. Oh, they want us to install the sensor protector back on. Okay. There is a little wire in there you got to kind of look out for when you're doing this. Okay, so you put the clevis in, and then you just want to temporarily put that there. And then we want to put the front pin in, and the cotter pin. And that is it. All right, awesome. So that takes care of getting the hydraulics. So this is the old one, and it has its rubber pads in there. We'll put that away somewhere. And then we have our new replacement pads if we want to change out combinations on this. And we have change out of the other springs just like we had on the inverted ones. But now it's time to move on to the PHPRs. So now it's time to add the HPRs, the haptic pedal reactors, one for each pedal. So let's see what comes with each of these as we unbox them. And here we have one of those beautiful little motors. And what's great about these, I mentioned in the beginning how these aren't like just like vibration motors like you would see in like a PS4 controller, but these are actually more like mini butt kickers. So they're very, very effective for what they are, and really robust little motors here. So, all right, little adapter it looks like, and that's all that's in the box. So, okay, it looks like, so the plate just goes onto here like so, and then the motor goes onto there, but you'll have to remove the pedal face. All right, so we might as well remove all 3 pedal faces while we're here. And there's our gas. Okay, so our adapter plate bolts onto this. So there are little threaded holes right there on the back of all these pedal arms ready for this. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and just, we're not gonna have access to these screws, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it the proper torquing direction technique. Kind of looks cool sitting on there too. So there we go. That is on there. That is on there good. Now we have these plug-in points down here. So now we can run this wire down. We'll kind of worry about some routing later. And it plugs in to the board right there. And they do give you these little sticky clip things for wire routing. And I'm going to hang in there and wait a minute before I do that. All right, let's move on to number 2. Same tool bag, same instructions, same pieces. There we go. Okay, that one's tightened down. And then same thing. When we go like this, you can see right there that PHPR. Pull a little rubber cap off of there. And then this one plugs into that. All right, number 3, onto the clutch pedal. We don't need instructions. All right, there we go. And then this one's wire would go here right next to the brake one. Okay, now we just need to put our pedal faces back on. There you have it. We've got the new hydraulic mod installed on the P1000 pedals. Look at that. And we have the haptic pedal reactors on all 3 pedals. At this point, all we have to do is mount these in our rig, obviously. We'll need to plug in our power supply. And again, I said this at the beginning, but I want to remind everybody, you need to buy a power supply to make this work. 1 power supply per pedal unit, I should say. So this one will plug in here. Our USB will plug in here and go to the computer, and that will power the motors, and the USB will receive the signal, and we will be up and running. So that is really it. Time to get these bolted onto the rig and see what these feel like. I mean, I've never said that about a pedal set in the same way. See what they're gonna feel like. So I'm really excited to get these on the rig and test them out. We're gonna do that right now. As much as I want to get into driving and talk about how the P1000 pedals felt with all the add-ons installed into them, I did want to really quickly go into installation, or at least putting them on my rig, and talk about the software a little bit. Now, the installation or putting them on the rig, which we did cover in the inverted version, is pretty much the exact same process, except it's even easier because you have so much more clearance. The 4 holes on the SiMagic P1000 pedals are the exact same pattern as the Fanatic Club Sport, which means virtually every rig in the world is going to be pre-drilled for them. So 4 supplied bolts later, the pedals are on your rig, ready to go. It really was that easy. Now, when it comes to the software, you do need to use the SiMagic software in order to make the pedals operate properly. And we covered this in the P1000 inverted as well. So you can do your calibration and all that stuff with the pedals, and we covered that in that. But now let's talk about what you can do as far as the Haptic Reactor pedals go. And you have a few adjustments you can make, but you really don't have to do anything but turn them on. They're ready to go. You just have to make sure everything looks right in the software, and you can make small adjustments in terms of the overall strength. You can make changes in the frequency or how quickly the vibration happens, which will change the way it feels under your foot. And then you have a few other settings like the feedback options of clutch, ABS, traction control, and off. But of course, that'll be game dependent, and they do have some presets already done for most of the games out there. Now that we have them installed and the software all up and running, we can talk about how things actually perform. We have a few different things we're testing here that I want to talk about. So since it covers just the brake pedal, why don't we start with the hydraulics themselves? So the P1000 pedals run on a 100 kilogram load cell, and then they use a stack of elastomers to kind of change like the spring rate. It's the same as having a spring, but with elastomers, what you can do is use different durometers to create a couple of different pressure zones. So for example, you'll have a certain amount of travel that moves very easily, which is great for just some scrubbing. If you're going into a chicane and you just need to control speed, that soft squish zone is really good for that kind of braking right there. And then obviously, I like to have something a little stiffer for threshold braking, so I can press very hard on the pedal and then be able to really balance on that pressure to get the braking right on that edge of brake locking up, and that works really good. And then getting back to that soft stack, when I'm braking straight line, that's full pressure, but as I start to turn and start to go to trail braking and I'm releasing, we come off of that heavy firm stack of elastomers into the lighter set. So that's how the old P1000s work on their own, and that's what you feel, and it's very common to many load cell setups out there. Now with the hydraulic upgrade, what we've done is we've created a damper. It's a shock. It literally is like a shock. It's a squishiness that is hydraulic fluid squishing through holes, allowing that plate to move along, and it is a different feeling than elastomers. Sometimes elastomers feel super springy. Sometimes a spring feels very springy, what do you know, and you feel like it's kind of bouncing under your foot. The hydraulic damper, when you're applying the brake, just makes it feel really smooth. It's not so much soft, it's just something about the way it absorbs your pressure in a really nice way. And it kind of hides that springiness effect that the elastomers would create. So the two systems together work really well. You have that dual stage or triple stage of elastomers squeezing under your foot, followed by or combined with something that's just kind of like blending it all together, so it's a really smooth action that feels very natural and feels very realistic. It feels very much like a real car pedal versus a load cell or a spring alone that just doesn't feel like a car brake system. This is what a car brake system feels like, or a lot more like how a car brake system works. So when you're just going for that total authenticity, it just gives a brake pedal set that felt very sim, perfect for sim racing, and turn them into perfect for sim racing, but also starting to really replicate the way real pedals feel. Now, the other side of hydraulics is upon release. And I think this is the area that my brain really, really likes hydraulic pedals. And here's why. When you're using a spring or a load cell, which is basically a heavy spring, it is pressing against you. It is resisting your pressure. So as your foot moves, it moves just like the gas pedal. It is very fast reacting, and I'd almost say when you start to lighten up into trail braking that it's almost pushing you. So as you let the momentum go upon brake release, you actually find that it's kind of pressing against you. A hydraulic pedal is actually somewhat delayed. The word for it, for Frank Rico, I believe, was hysteresis.
That's actually another phenomenon that occurs called hysteresis.
And it means that when you pull your foot off the brake real quick because you're done braking, that you actually have freedom of your foot. It is off the pedal, and the pedal then releases naturally on its own as it releases the fluid through the hydraulic system. This is what a real car brake pedal feels like. So it's that authenticity, it's that realism. It's also for people who drive or race cars a lot, it starts to get in that motor memory. It starts to feel like your brain needs it to feel, wants it to feel, so that it's mimicking the race car that you're driving, which is awesome. Now, combine that with the haptics under our feet. So the haptics. Here we are, we have our force feedback, we go into the corner, and if that wheel loads up heavy, you know you're probably pushing things real hard, getting really good grip. You might even need to turn more. It's almost asking you to turn more, that heaviness as you fight the wheel. And on the flip side with force feedback, when we start to get oversteer, the wheel gets light. The wheel gets real light, and we know that we have to actually input a little bit less, or we're gonna go around, or if we're on the gas, maybe we have to let off the gas a little bit, or we're gonna go around. The wheel gets light, letting you know the car is rotating extra quickly. Those are the signals we depend on to get the most out of the car. We use those effects to make adjustments as the driver to get the car perfectly through the corner the way we want it to be with the most speed. Now, putting that kind of signaling into the pedals is similar, but remove the force. Now it's feedback, no force. So let's start with the brake pedal, the most important pedal, of course. So here we go down the straight, we're flying into the corner, and I'm gonna slam on the brakes, and you're gonna hear that rumble. And what that rumble is a warning system that I am locking up the brakes. I am skidding the tires, I am losing grip, I am losing traction, and I am not effectively braking. It is just like the feedback in the steering wheel, letting you know that rumble strip, letting you know that over or understeer. But now it's telling me about wheel lockup. Straight line braking, heavy braking, I get lockup. Or maybe when I'm going into trail braking and we start to unload that front wheel, you're gonna get wheel lockup, and it's gonna let you know. So maybe you didn't get it in straight line, but as soon as you turned in, you started to lock up that front inside tire. You're gonna get feedback on that, letting you know, apply just a little bit less brake, or know what's going on with the car. Either one is exactly what you need to know. So with that, I just have one more sensation. I already had the audio cues in my ear, little chirps, telling me I'm getting brake lockup, wheel lockup. I was already getting the visual cues, perhaps. Maybe I was getting a little stuttering out of the car, or seeing it starting to slide. And now I have another cue. Under my feet, a really strong vibration telling me anytime the wheels are starting to lose their grip under braking load, which is just awesome and fantastic. Another thing, for people who downshift too early, sometimes you create a little wheel lockup by locking up the transmission temporarily as the engine RPM matches the speed of the wheels in the new gear. Well, you're going to get a little chirp there too, and it will actually train you to probably slow down your downshifting a little bit and keep better traction on the car. Now, in theory, we have the same thing going on from the throttle pedal and the clutch pedal in terms of what their role in the car is. In iRacing, unfortunately, in the SiMagic software, there is no traction control. So what you would do when you fire up Assetto Corsa or R-Factor, that when you're getting on the gas and you start to slide the rear end in the slightest bit, well, you're going to feel it in that steering wheel, that oversteer, but now you're actually going to feel it in the throttle pedal as well. It's a warning system when you get on that gas saying, hey, I'm going to shake you until you realize this is too much gas, because you're starting to spin the rear end. And in some cases, that might be the way to drive, or you wanted to, but it just lets you know that you're doing it right, or it lets you know that you're doing it wrong, and you can back things down and just get better performance out of the gas. Now, the clutch was the least dramatic of the three pedals when I drove the system. This is for sure. And the main reason for that is because it has a pretty basic role in the car, and in sim racing, the clutch and the transmission and even H-pattern shifters have always been a little underperformed, let's say. So the clutch on this system represents bite point. So for me, the clutch is used mainly on starts of the race. So I'm going to pop in the clutch, I'm going to rev up the car, put it in gear, and as soon as it goes green, I'm going to drop the clutch. Under that use, you don't feel the clutch bite point. You just blew right past it. It is gone. Same thing on speed shifts. If I'm just doing quick shifts like that, I'm not feeling the clutch bite point. So even though there is a rumble going on every time I pass that clutch bite point. And what is the clutch bite point? On the back of the motor, you have your flywheel. And on that flywheel, it has a surface that connects to another surface that when mated, they grip, and that other surface is on the transmission. And so when you pull out the clutch, it pulls the two apart so they don't touch. As you release the clutch and they start to touch, the engine is starting to grab. The engine's spinning, and it is starting to grab the transmission and spin it. And that is what you're feeling. So on a race start, for example, if you just want to kind of know exactly where that release point is, if you just kind of start to feel, you'll feel a little rumble just as the engine and transmission start to lock together. So that could be good for race starts in certain car where traction is a consideration. It could also be good if we ever get in a scenario where we actually have locked out gates in our H patterns, where you actually need to start feeling the system of what's going on. Right now, I just feel like we shift blindly in sim racing. There's not a lot in an H pattern giving you any kind of real sensation. I think when we start getting there, adding it to things like a clutch bite point, that we could start really getting the real effects of a car. For now, I think it's kind of cool, and it's a nice add-on, but of the three pedals, it's probably the least important as far as performance goes. And in the end, that is the important thing, performance. So I want to make a couple adjustments really quickly. I'll tell you what I'm doing to those adjustments, and then I'm going to give you some final thoughts as I have these really, really dialed in for me. When we covered the P1000 inverted pedals, we went through all the adjustments and all the ways that you can tune the pedals in for your own needs. And all of those changes carry over to the regular version of the non-inverted version. So, I mean, for example, you can change the pin location on the throttle. That'll make it stiffer or a lighter spring. You can adjust the angle of all the pedal faces. You can adjust the height of all the pedal faces. You can change out the clutch spring. So you have a lot of adjustability in these pedals, but focusing mainly on the brake pedal with that new HPR system in it, you still have the resistance of the load cell itself. You still have the hydraulic system, or now have the hydraulic system, and you still have the urethane bushing system, but it's a little bit different. So with the regular pedals come additional rubber pads. So you've got a series of red, blue and gray, red being the hardest, blue being softer, and then gray, and then black being the softest. And then you've got another kit here with the black one. So you can change out that stack to change the resistance. Now, with the HPR, you basically are getting the OPR, the optional rubber pads or the performance kit. So with it, you get some additional red, blue, and gray. And then you also get these solid ones. So if you want to actually limit the travel, these don't squish at all. So let's go ahead and make some changes. When I drove these originally, I noticed the pedal felt great. And you know, you can get used to any pedal. You don't have to dial them in. Just give you the pedal, give you enough miles, you're going to get used to the way it operates. But for optimal braking, you really want to dial that pedal in to work the way that you think it should be, whether it be 1, 2, or 3 stages, whether it be short or long travel. And I'm not here to get in an argument about what is right or wrong. What is right is what's best for you. So I noticed that this pedal was a little soft, and I didn't feel a lot of the progression of the squishiness, and I felt it had a little more travel than I'd like. So we're going to go ahead and make some quick adjustments just to really get them dialed in. So on this particular setup, the whole stack comes with, whoa, I wanted that to come off, come on. The whole stack sticks into the top, and you can see that we have all of our urethane bushings, 3 gray, which are soft, followed by 3 blue, which are a little bit harder, followed by 3 red, which are even harder. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of these blue ones here in the middle, and I'm actually going to switch out. So we pulled out 3, and I'm going to switch 1 out for a solid, and I'm going to actually add 1 of each. So we got rid of the blue, which is the medium density. We're going to go to 4 of the soft ones, then that spacer, and then 4 of the hard ones. And what that should give me is a really good dual stage feeling. So all we have to do is put this stack back together, put it back inside the cap. There's a little hole down in the middle that it kind of sticks onto. And then get this to go in there without coming apart. And now let's see how that feels under our foot. So with those adjustments made, and basically it's pretty easy. All I really did was change out those elastomers to get the level of soft and firm braking that I wanted. Have that kind of matched and timed with exactly how the car works. That's how I picked and selected my stacks. I also got a little bit less travel out of the brake pedal, so it feels a little bit more like a race car pedal than a street car pedal, not quite as squishy. On top of that, I turned up the volume on the brake pedal, so it'd be even more noticeable when things were going on. And at this point, you know, you have that hydraulic system working in unison with that elastomer system, giving just a great feeling under my foot. You know, the more I drive these pedals, the happier I get. You know, as a mainly an iRacer guy, I could get by on the brake pedal haptics alone with the hydraulic upgrade, and quite honestly, with that in the inverted or standard, the standard model P1000s, we're only talking a little over $700 for what right now is a pedal set that I am really enjoying using. The haptics under lockup, like I'm driving the Miata right now, which is not a tough car to drive. But when you look at the difference between most people and the fast guys, and you wonder where and how are they doing it, and the way they are is mainly under braking. And being able to brake this beast all the way to the maximum amount allows you to get the most out of this car. And being able to have that early warning system of brake lockup. And so when you have that great dual stage pressure of the elastomers combined with that hydraulic system giving it that comfort factor, and then you've got those vibrations, I can get right to that edge of braking and just a little more, and it's like all you have to do is think about backing off, and it's enough to make the rumble go away and know that you're getting full braking and full traction. It is, I almost want to say it's cheating. At times, it feels like it's cheating because I know I have this going on and that very few other people do. And it just takes, how much do we pay for force feedback in our steering wheels at this point? You know, people are paying $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for steering wheel and base combos to get the best force feedback, because the best force feedback is going to make you faster. It's going to get you the best lap times, right? Well, at this point, I've got a cheat under my feet getting me the best lap times, or giving me every opportunity to get the best lap times. So it's something that I enjoy. Do you have to have it? No. I mean, I think that you can obtain perfection without these devices, but I think it's going to be a great way for people to find the limits of the car a lot quicker than without them. And it's probably going to make the process repeatable. So maybe not a faster lap time, but a lot more times hitting that optimal mark than before. So again, the P1000 pedals with the haptics and the hydraulics and tuning in the elastomers ends up being a set of pedals that I would race on happily all the time. This review's been really focusing mostly on the add-ons, since they are what is new to me, but it isn't lost on me that we are using a slightly different set of pedals. These are the P1000 standard versus the P1000 inverted that we tested earlier, and I think the best way to compare the two or see the differences is to go back to the good list for the P1000 inverted pedals and see how things have changed. And I really stand by everything on that list, but I would actually now add great price to that list, because I think for the standard version, not paying for that inversion kit puts these pedals at a price point that I think is really, really attractive. So when I didn't really mention the cost and the good and the not so good, now it definitely goes on that good list. The other thing is, well, these are now gorgeous pedals. I think they always looked good, but now with all this high tech on there, they're extremely good looking pedals. The only problem is we've driven the price up to the point where I would no longer say good price is part of the good. I would just say that it's a normally or appropriately priced pedal set. When we look at the not so good list for the P1000 inverted pedals, it was already a very short list, but to be honest with you, I have to strike both of those items from the list. These are no longer an expensive pedal set when you look at the base model on their own, so that comes off the list. That was only applicable to the inversion, where you're paying for that inversion kit on top of the pedal set itself. And then the other being the space or the clearance issue. Well, without that extra framing, these are about the same shape and size as just about any pedal set out there. They fit on the Fanatic bolting holes, so they're no longer large or something that you have to consider. So I really have absolutely nothing to put on the not so good list. This is a great set of pedals for the money, and being able to add on or add these things to them later just makes it that much better. Now, with that all said, I can't really do a good and not so good list for each of the add-ons, but we can talk about them each individually in terms of their value and how they really size up as far as do you need them. So let's start things off with the hydraulic upgrade kit. So this upgrade on its own is $179, and I can't sit here and act as though $179 is nothing, or that it's a small amount of money. For a lot of people, this is a significant amount of money, and a $179 addition to the pedal set, it completely changes who the pedals are available to. That almost $200 jump is big. So I'm not going to act like it's not a big deal. It is a significant upgrade. Now, with that said, or the next question I would certainly ask is, do you need hydraulics? And the real answer is no, you do not need hydraulics. I don't feel that hydraulics make the pedals actually perform better in terms of my ability to hit perfection on the track, in terms of my ability to get the repeatable response out of the pedals every single time. It changes none of that. What it does for me is it adds a huge level of realism. So when you look at some of the highest end pedals out there, most of them are hydraulic, and it's because it is truly creating the exact feel of a brake pedal sensation. And for me, we talked about this with Frank Rico of Ricmotic tech in our interview talking about my GT Pro pedals, and it's hysterus, I think is the word, but where when you pull your foot off the brake pedal, it doesn't stay on your foot like it's spring loaded like a gas pedal will do. There is a hint of a delay. And there's also a little bit more room for pressing on it before you start getting some of those actions. And then on top of that, I feel that the hydraulic system, it works to kind of hide or damper against like spring and elastomers, which sometimes you can actually feel those in your feet, and you're like, well, that's not really what a hydraulic system feels like, aka a brake system. So I feel it kind of hides those elastomers and makes them feel a little bit better on application, and then on release it just gives you that sensation like a real car. So if you drive on regular pedals, if you bought these without the upgrade and you thought, you know, they're really spring loaded, that brake pedal, I don't like the way it follows my foot so quickly, even pushes against it when I release, I want it to feel like my car, well then the hydraulic upgrade is going to cure that. So I think that's the kind of thing, like if this is a complaint, if this is something that you'd like to be more realistic, it's a great add-on, and if you're happy with the way the pedals operate, it's not going to make you any faster, so you definitely don't need it. So that takes us to the Haptic pedal reactors, and like I said at the beginning of the show, this was the thing that I was the most excited about. I remember when I did my interview with Tyler Wang a while ago, we were talking about the SiMagic active pedal, and he alluded to some things coming in the future from SiMagic. So I've kind of been wondering and watching, and then when I saw these, I knew I had to have them. So when I didn't get them for the inverted pedals, I was a little disappointed because I was as excited about the reactors as I was the pedals themselves. So with that said, we are looking at another substantial upgrade. So at $232, 69 times 3 plus a $25 pedal supply, power supply, you are talking about a significant upgrade, 40% or so in terms of raising the price of the stock pedals. So it changes the price point. That means it might even be unaffordable for some people. So again, significant, large, nothing I can sweep under the rug as far as expense goes. But you do get a lot for that money. The Haptic pedal reactors have the potential of making you faster. And that's not a lie. It's not just an advertising slogan, but the benefits of getting that advanced warning, that other sensory. So instead of just waiting on your ears and your eyes to tell you what's going on, you get your feet getting those warning systems. Your feet are the ones that can save you, and they're the ones getting the warning system. So again, it does and can make you faster, and it's hard to put a price on that, really. Now, being realistic, keeping things in perspective. For me, iRacing is my main sim. I think most of you guys know that. In iRacing, under the SiMagic software, there is no traction control. So there's really no point in even buying the throttle one. In iRacing, the clutch signal, it's there, but if I'm shifting really fast and just like speed shifting, I don't even feel it. My foot's not on the pedal long enough to get that sensation. Don't need it, which means I can take this down to $69 for the brake pedal reactor only, and the power supply, and the hydraulic unit, and the pedals themselves. That puts you at $792. And when I think about this pedal set with the hydraulic, because I love the realism, with the haptics because I love the ability to make adjustment when I'm getting wheel lockup, all of that for $792, that is the way to go when it comes to this package, in my opinion. Now, you can always add the reactors later. In Assetto Corsa, for example, you get a lot more response out of the throttle. Well, you get traction control where you don't in iRacing, so it could be worth it for some people. I have more problems, or I save more time under braking, so that's where I'd start. I'd go to throttle second, and then the clutch. You can get a deal if you're buying all three, so it might be worth it. If you're going to get two, you might as well get all three just to take advantage of that deal if you can find one out there. So all in all, super duper happy with these pedals, and again, I think with that hydraulic, one haptic, $792 price point, it's pretty hard to beat this. I mean, hydraulic pedal sets usually start at $1,000, so you're well under that with the hydraulic system installed on this one. So very, very, very cool, and didn't let me down, and I can't wait to try these out with SimHub. So I understand you can even get traction control in iRacing. If all goes well, I'll probably do another show just talking about that a little bit on its its own. So I hope you've enjoyed this show. Be sure to give it a thumbs up if you did. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can find out when our next video comes out. And thank you for watching. This is The Simpit. I'm Shaun Cole, and I'll see you on the track.